This is GTR, Genesis, Timeline and Roots. In a world of fractured stories, timelines buried, and truths erased, one project dares to ask the question, what if everything you thought you knew about history was wrong? This is GTR, Genesis, Timeline and Roots. A 5,025-year simulated walkthrough tracing a melanated Adam back to 4000 BC. Over the last decade, new revelations confirm a black origin for humanity, from European vaults to tribal memory, Babylon to Britain. This is not just history, this is a challenge, a simulation, a movement. Meet the man behind GTR, Dr. Wilton MacDonald II, Caymanian, British, Jamaican, haplogroup E and stateless for 26 years. Now a global explorer, 119 countries and counting. A hedge fund lawyer, a UK chartered accountant, a seeker of the lost archives of our people. But the question remains, if all black people came out of Africa, does that make us only African? Or are we also European, Scottish, Native American, Jacobite Hebrew, Asian? GTR exists to answer that question. You've felt it your entire life, that there's something wrong with the world. A splinter in your mind. That splinter has brought you here, to GTR. Whites can't trace their roots before the 1800s. Where's ours? Where are the tribes? The languages, the kings, the queens, the true Hebrews? Where did the giants go? Where are the Neanderthals? Angels, aliens? Why do we speak in so many tongues? Was Babel just a myth? A memory? History has holes. Hollywood has lied. The system was never made for us to remember. Only 5 to 8% of people today are white. And what about the 1800 stories and postcards of the cabbage babies? But nearly all history books center their story. That doesn't add up. Atlantis, lost cities, vanished civilizations, or were they erased? Try GTR. Take the red pill and awaken to the truth of your ancestors. Or take the blue pill and keep dreaming a fantasy. GTR, a simulated walkthrough of Black Hebrew history and eschatology. This is the beginning of remembering. This is GTR, Genesis, Timeline and Roots.
Well, hello again, K-Man. This is your host, Dr. Wilton MacDonald II, and welcome to another interesting and exciting program of GTR, Genesis, Timeline, Roots. This is episode 31. I am shooting live from Cambridge. My daughter is doing an advanced course for 2 weeks for high school students, and I'm rounding up my own program at the grad school. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to share, even people who interacted with me from the minute I got here early today. I was looking at the program, GTR episode 30, and they couldn't help but notice the background, this colorful background. And one grad student from Chennai, where my mom is from, and she's like, I always knew there was something wrong with the world. And that sounds so familiar with the GTR trailer. Something is indeed wrong. Like Morpheus said in the Matrix, we don't know what it is, but we feel it. We sense that something is wrong with our world. And people are waking up. People are challenging the status quo. They're challenging that narrative before them. I really want to extend heartfelt thanks to the audience for supporting GTR. We could not have done this without your support. We are ranked number one consistently for the last 4 months on average in terms of YouTube and Facebook views, because GTR is really about you. You're interested to know the life experience of being not just white and Asian, but melanated people. GTR, it's your story. And this is just a roadmap for a lot of people who want to take that journey, that deep existential look into your lives and to explore what it is to be you. The question that comes up in Cayman to who you for, who you belong to. And it has been really, really difficult to answer that question because we were not told. I did not have great conversations with my grandparents, with even my own parents about ancestry and ancestral information. Oh, this is big people stuff. You're a child. Be silent. To go away. And the brush off. And living as an expatriate, not just an expatriate, but a Black Caribbean expatriate in Cayman during the 1980s. And yeah, it's brutal growing up, moving, going to London, again, given the brush that, you're exotic and, we can't help you, job fairs, foreign, as one Magic Circle partner said to me. And even in Cayman, the divide between those locals that are prominent and they are generational Caymanians, and then those who are expatriate who are from G7, G8 countries, and you find yourself as a Black expatriate from the islands, as someone who falls within the crack of a crack. And it's not something to pity party and feel sorry, but it's just a reality that a lot of us would have to overcome. I received 4 samples back from the lab just yesterday, and 3 out of 4 are confirmed haplogroup E matches, and those final results are being determined now. One person who is working with me on ADDI, Mr. Cook, he is a Floridian. He's a haplogroup E. He's a Hebrew. And I'm so happy with that result. Just doing the final bit of an analysis, but definitely confirmed E and sharing information. He might then be a Martin surname, but Cook Martin, definitely an E. The other would be the Reverend Joshua Mapunga. Oh my goodness, it was great to get the confirmation of being an E, but not just E. But let me just take a little step back. In the case of Cook Martin, it's an Irish connection, and the name really stands, Martin/Cook, and it's an Black Irish connection, haplogroup E. In the case of Reverend Joshua Mapunga, happy to report that he's also an E, and he has an ancient Hebrew, born and in Zimbabwe 3-4 generations, but deep ancient Hebrew roots. The other would be Soma Michel, a gentleman from Burkina Faso, but instead of being an A or a B, typical African lineage, he's an E with the French Normandy connections. We're going to do some further analysis once we get the full results back. But the tests are going through that final bit of the run cycle. We have the haplogroup determination. And the fourth, shockingly, was an R. Out of the 4 samples, 3 E's, 1 R. And that R is very narrow. It's one family, one McDonald family that is connected to St. Elizabeth. One. And that's the match that's coming up. It's a black gentleman living in Hawaii, Mr. Chris McDonald, but he's an R and connected to at least 2 other persons that I know of that are coming from the same rooted McDonald, who obviously was a white guy, haplogroup R, very, very narrow match because there's just one gentleman who the results are traced back to. The E's are a lot broader in spectrum. They match, but they link to different forefathers. And E is a massive family, even older than A and B and C. So I encourage to understand the results, to understand when I speak about haplogroups. We're all encouraged to go and to do a bit of reading as to the haplogroup definitions. It's the out of Africa theory. They put you in a box and they try to classify you based on your migration and the date of the migration. But oftentimes you find the migration dates are wrong. They're off. They say that it's about 50,000 years, 100,000 years. We're talking about 5,000 years of human existence from BC 4000, and scrapping the dark ages were never dark. So we have about 5,000 years roughly from BC 4000. And that's what makes the most sense. So we're going to now go into these 2 profiles, Murdoch and Bettencourt.
This is GTR, Genesis Timeline and Roots.
So Mr. Rupert Murdoch, he's actually Keith Rupert Murdoch. He was born in 1931 in Australia, but he's connected to Scotland. He will be turning, 100 years in 1931. So 2031, he's just shy of 100 years old. Owner of so many newspapers, and we do not know his haplogroup. We have pictures of his father, Sir Keith. Again, we don't know. He has kept his haplogroup under lock and key, which makes me believe that something is up. People who hide their haplogroups, they have a story to tell. If there were R's, they would just announce it that they're R's because it's expected. But if you are not an R, a lot of these prominent people, they are E's or A's, and they hide it. Should we go to his son, Lachlan? And he is supposed to be now the owner and controller, CEO of his dad's business. We have his brother, James. But if you look at the mother's profile, sounds almost like a Hebrew, but Estonian. I've been to Estonia. You have maybe 1 million people. You don't have a lot of Estonians globally. Yet you have Daniel, we have Joran, we have people from Estonian on the mom's side. I just drew the line at 1871. That's really all I can go back to. But there's connections to Italy through the Braida family, Giuseppe, perhaps Italian roots on the maternal line, but definitely Estonian on paternal line. Murdoch has Irish, Scottish, but again, we don't know because there are Murdochs, an M-U-R-D-O-C-H or M-U-R-D-O-C-K, different spelling, and then it's to the surname. But I've had other Murdoch connections, Black Murdoch connections. And I do not know because this man has been very secretive. He's been the king of tabloid media. He's been in so many interesting scandals and phone hacking and all these other things and thriving on information. But he's been very, very secretive in guarding his haplogroup. On the maternal side, which looks like was a green, was that an Irish green? There's a William Henry that stands out, but by and large, it is really William Henry Green from Ireland. The mom's side is suspect, could be cabbage baby linked, but the father's side appears to be a legit Murdoch connected to Scotland. I feel that he is an E. I believe he even made an investment in buying a British DNA company, but it's not made public, and he certainly has not made his haplogroup public. Just curious as to know about this family and who he is. And I'm just using the GTR platform to do some deep dives into prominent names. The other one I will turn to now would be the owner of the cosmetics company, L'Oreal, the creator, owner of L'Oreal, the first major cosmetics company. I mentioned Bettencourt, but you have to look at the lady's father, Eugene Schuellers. Sounds German. And he was born in France. He's a Frenchman, French chemist in 1881. And he founded the company, L'Oreal. His daughter was Liliane Bettencourt. And she was a Schuller, and she has one daughter. But when you look at the family and the family tree, which we'll take a dive at right now, you're going to see a whole host of personalities. The founder's granddaughter, her name is Francois, and she's a Myers. Now, let's go further down the family tree. Her son, Francois' son, is Jean Victor, born in 1986. So he's the heir apparent to the L'Oreal multi-billion-dollar fortune. This is an interesting sort of family tree. Scandals on tax evasion, his grandmother having relationships outside the marriage, boyfriends taken advantage of. I think she even gave her boyfriend like $1 billion of artwork and all that stuff. So there's some scandals. You have Eugene. So you focus on the owner, founder of the company, the Eugene Schuller. Sounds German, even though he was born in France. His father was Charles, and Eugene's grandfather was a Henry. I just couldn't break down these walls. Henry and a Joseph. Again, the Jewish Hebrew names. They're prominent all over, even though they have no connection to the state of Israel. They are generally linked to Europe, Eastern Europe. It's just fascinating to see. I cannot break through. It's Charles then Henry. I can't even get to Joseph. I can't verify Joseph's status. But we see a lot of these caucus flags where Eugene's wife, a Burroughs, just the brick wall, can't penetrate. Cabbage baby linked. This is basically my cabbage baby links and connectors, because I cannot break through the walls. We have Lillian. When she died, she had $40 billion or more. And her husband was a Bettencourt, a diplomat, an aristocrat, who was Andre Bettencourt, who married Liliane Schuller. And she was the daughter of the founder of the L'Oreal cosmetics company. Andre's father was Victor. And then you have a Jacques Henry. I just could not find much information again. Trying to find the primary sources, the records, the birth records, if they moved around, trying to find those migration records. Francois, she's still alive, born 1953. She is the granddaughter of the dynasty, and she is currently married to Jean Pierre. He recently passed away, so she is a widow. Who was this chap that she was married to, Myers? He's Jewish, so she converted to Judaism, and we see here a Frenchman Marcel. His grandfather was a Robert Myers, died supposedly in a death camp in Poland. Robert's father was Philip, don't know, France, Poland, Netherlands. And then his father was a Meyer Myers. I mean, the surname and the Christian name would be the same. That's like someone saying, Wilton, your name today is McDonald McDonald. It just fizzles out. There are no roots, none whatsoever. No connection to the state of Israel. It's fascinating how this French company amassed, enormous fortunes. France, I said it before, colonized Africa. They still print 15 different currencies in Africa. And the institutions of Europe is housed in France and Belgium. And one of the biggest landowners, Bolloré, a French billionaire, is very much a landowner in Africa. And companies like Orange and telecommunication and Total, the petroleum company, they rake in billions a week in Africa. But all of that is changing. With Burkina, the Sahel, Traore, and what he's doing, I really, really raise my hat to the new African leaders in West Africa, shaking things up. Because France has done very little for Africa. The average income is around $500 to $600 per year. And yet that number is some hourly wage in the West. $500 to $600 per year. When you look at Burkina Faso, $2,000 per year. And the Western countries, we're talking 40, 50, 60,000 a year. These two profiles I brought up because you had Netflix documentaries on Murdoch and this other Bettencourt, Schuellers, Myers family. They're equally wealthy, but we don't know, in the case of Murdoch, the haplogroup. In the case of the Bettencourt, I don't see any legit Black lineage. Myers, peters out, no real State of Israel, Jewish connection, even though they wear the label. Bettencourt, nothing there. As far as Schuellers, definitely not Black German. The line fizzles out and we don't see any real connections to Europe. So that concludes the two profiles. I wanted to go into the main course. What's the end game? When we as Black people, we have been stripped of our identity. We held our names, but who we are, what we are, where we are. What's the end game? When you're in investment, they ask question, what's my exit strategy? I turn to the eschatology component of GTR, which is the last day events. We have some bumpy roads ahead. The empires of the West are crashing, dollars crashing. And I know I said it before, and pundits and other economists, like you have the Middle Nation, Shahid Bolson and others, are talking about the collapsing West. And they kick the can down the road. Some people say, well, maybe 50 trillion is America's max credit card limit. The jumbo credit card limit will max out at 50 trillion. And in the meantime, they're having other entities and funds purchase these bonds, which no one really wants. And bonds represent an instrument of borrowing, and they borrow money. At some point, you can't afford your interest payments. So we have a question mark, what's next for Blacks? Are they going to finally admit to the history and the cloning and cabbage baby stories? I've seen so many movies and movies that focus around aliens. So this GTR episode, I believe that we have a vast universe. My personal belief, and even our founder, Ellen White, who was a Black woman, she mentioned that there are intelligent life all over the universe, untainted, they have not sinned, they are pure, and they worship divine God, the Hebrew God. They still worship God, Jehovah. So I believe that's true. And any sort of aberrations and representations of alien life force are really demonic. They are fallen angels that present the bug-eyed, and they present themselves as agents of light, of angels and white. As Ellen White saw Lucifer in his form of sagging flesh about the hands and the face and the neck, which is, lack of collagen. You are hanging, you're swaying in the wind. And I feel that those, in another episode, I alluded to this, that the agents of light, the aliens, the demons, the fallen angels, not the people in other real locations around the galaxy. No one's going to leave and come to Earth to fly in a saucer and say hello. That doesn't make any sense. Do what? Accomplish what? The Bible makes clear that Satan was kicked out of heaven, him and 1/3 of the angels. They have been here. They have been enhancing the technology. They have been visiting mankind, and they have been appearing in what the form of enlightened white, this fascination of whiteness. It has to come from somewhere. We're a black society, but the manifestations, the visitations have found itself in a physical representation in the clones, in the cabbage baby, in what we have now seen today. It's like they say, art imitates life, life imitates art, borrowed from Oscar Wilde. And it's true. Movies can imitate life and life represented in movies, vice versa. So the babies, the images that you see around the world, the straight-nosed, Caucasian-looking images in marble, and they have plants that can soften the marble. Those representations, they reflected the visitors that visited the antediluvians. That's BC 3000. Let's go GTR style. The antediluvians, BC 3000, because the flood was 2400 BC. The Egyptians, around 2000 BC. The Babylonians, around 600 BC. The Persians, 500 BC. The Greeks, 300 BC. Rome, 150 BC to 476 AD. And then it gets a little dicey because the tribes, the black tribes of Europe that sacked Rome, the Vandals, the Lombards, the Visigoths, the Suevi, the Saxons, the Franks, those tribes benefited from the knowledge and sharing everywhere Rome went, and they left, some brothers, and they shared knowledge, they had wives. That information sharing resulted, and the overextension of Rome caused the inevitable collapse. But then what came next? Tartaria, the world post-Rome, not the Dark Ages, but there was a gradual build up and development and enhancement of the Frankish Empire, touching on the Benelux countries, Belgium, Netherlands, Luxembourg, France, those Benelux, red, white, and blue. Red, white, and blue, and it gave us the UK, USA, which have been engines of that system. Russia, France, UK, USA, the red, white, and blue countries, based on colors of the flag. Just think about it. Germany is off with the black, red, and yellow, but those countries have dominated and progressed in such a manner. And there was a reset, whether that was the turn of the late 1700s, or rather that's the 700s that became the 1700s. 582 became 1582, the important leap that GTR is making in the timeline, and we adjust for it, that we really have 1,000 years since Christ and around 5,026 years from Adam. We look at the numbers, look at the population stats, look at the demographics. So that Tartary was visited by these beings. They appeared to them like they back then in the antediluvian world, and they visited them and they cast the images based on what they saw. So I'm just duty bound to do this episode on the alien delusion. We have seen so many movies on aliens. We are being prepped. Is this some kind of psychological experiment? We can have so many movies with the Star Treks. You could Google this. And this is just one website that you can go to. Is that the alien Paul? Remember that movie? Countless movies that try to tell the story of some bug-eyed alien that's coming to visit mankind. Last Starfighter, so many, I mean, just too much to even recall. And just Superman, I mean, literally he was an alien too. We often forget, we just see him as a regular guy, but there's just tons of films that just go through and it's the same theme being prepped. Every other movie has some kind of alien theme. This wasn't a bad movie. The Valerian, that was quite interesting. And funny enough, it's Star Wars. Star Wars has this deeper empire. The Empire is really the baddies, right? Darth Vader and the Empire. And the Jedi are the rebels. And if you think about it, who really were the rebels in heaven? Satan and his minions. And they were warring against God. So the whole the script is flipped in the Star Wars, and we don't, we think nothing of it. But we've seen Alien. Okay, number one, even a recent film, Disclosure. We've seen that there were aliens on the planet and Area 51. So that's the current movie that's out now called Disclosure. But this is that constant theme on almost every movie, that we see the vicious, evil, destructive aliens or the bug-eyed, aliens, which are fuzzy-wuzzy ones that are not threatening. But we have to be careful here. One historian, theologian said, you know what? We might be digging down the wrong path. When I say that, who are Black people? Where do we come from? Made Black in God's image. I refer back to episode 16. Created Black in God's image. You can view it again. It's on YouTube. But they give us competing themes. The Anunnaki. Now, I respect Guy Anderson, his views. Other people, not just Guy Anderson, but they talk about the aliens. So that means original man. We're not made by God. We are alien. And so it's the cabbage babies that reflect more humanity, because they were made in part from us, but then our root, our stem, our black seed, our melanin comes from the Anunnaki. That is the thing that just throws me, because there must be an end game. And I'm trying to raise consciousness, raise the awareness. So you have some Black historians that are saying, we are divine because we are of the Anunnaki. Well, where does God fit in? Science today, in most science attempts to explain things without the divine. And one thing with our Adventist surgeon, Ben Carson, when he separated those twins, and I remember the first procedures, and he gave his accounts, how even God, he was failing at Yale, and God, in a dream, he just got the answers. And God inspired his life. And that touched me. He attributed his skill, the success, attributed to God, because when you deal with the brain and certain parts of neuroscience, you're getting into that element. You just don't know. So much complexities that are not even known by human. So we came about being the original carbon copy of the planet. But they take God out of it. So it's not God, it's the Anunnaki. And we were here, then we got bored, and we decided to experiment and create cabbage babies to serve. Then they essentially hijacked things and they became our masters. They're going to spin this. And again, that trying to find out at what point does this then turn against blacks and black people? We know there's a coming conflict, and we know that the remnant, not behold to any Adventist or denomination, but the remnant will be persecuted. Is it under the cover of some alien invasion? I just call it the alien delusion. So alien invasion. All the Anunnakis are back. They created the pyramids. They created our civilization. They created the black people. So they're back and attacking us. Are they going to create some false flag event? Something that conjures up fear and trying to then explain away falsely where blacks come from, disregarding the creator God, disregarding the true history. And then we're attacked. And so blacks again must pay the price, that we are ostracized, criticized, put down, because our masters have come back to claim. And we know this is a farce. Any supernatural visitations, the devil and his minions, the devil and his angels who are possessing the planet, who work with the elites, and they set the agendas. Bilderbergers every year, all these geopolitical summits, they set the agendas. So what's new? Some tin can floating ship is going to actually come and visit us. So I want us to kind of be prepared for what's coming. What I wanted to do is look at the even scripture and what it says in Revelation. It's hard to unpack, I know. In the book of Revelation 6:5-6, when the third seal was opened, and this is John the Revelator seeing a black horse, and he had balances in his hand. What did the four beasts say? A measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny. And see, thou hurt not the oil and the wine. So we are going to experience a great, famine. We're going to have huge, just like people even today are going off the grid. They're getting solar, they're getting their seeds, they're preparing for what is to come. So there are clues in the Bible, in Revelation, when it talks about the mark of this beast, which scholars saying that in the hand and in the forehead will be digital ID and tracking. Again, I'm not into conspiracy theories, but this is stated clearly in Revelation, looking at digital tagging, which they have the technology for, the RFID chip. We know they have the technology, even smaller than a rice grain, and you can be encoded, have all your information on that, and they just haven't implemented it. So what will be that final, showdown? They call it Armageddon. Ellen White in the Adventist church, Black Ellen White, she encourages us to prepare for the end. How do we prepare? She said, and she gave the warning that we should move into the countryside. Ellen White says, go ahead and create your own gardens. When the time of trouble comes on God's people, the remnant, it's not exclusive to any group like any Adventists, any Baptists, any Catholics. It's the remnant. And this is the eschatology piece that I'm trying to deal with, juxtaposed with the alien delusion. But what is also troubling in Revelation when it says during the time of the plagues, because there will be like the plagues in Egypt, there will be plagues visited on the fallen, on the wicked, those who have not repented. This is to come, that 1/3 of mankind will be lost. Again, some cataclysmic nuclear type of event. But there's also, but 1/3, that's between 2 and 3 billion people. So Ellen White says, moving out of the cities, go to the forests, to the mountains.
This is GTR, Genesis Timeline and Roots.
So this figure will be introduced, the Antichrist in the Bible. And we have to understand that it will be revealed with the Anunnaki, the aliens who've been primed up for this final conflict, Armageddon. So it says that there's going to be a fierce battle, terrifying battle, described in 2 Thessalonians 2, 3, and 4. And it says, don't be deceived in any way until the rebellion occurs and the man of lawlessness is revealed, the man doomed to destruction. In 1 John 2:18, we are reminded that, dear children, this is the last hour. As you have heard, the Antichrist is coming. Even now, many Antichrists have come, false prophets. This is how we know of the last hour. The final Antichrist is a future figure. John also warns, and that's John the Revelator who wrote Revelation, that it's a spirit of opposition to Christ, of the truth. And remember, Christ is portrayed as this figure that's not real, this whitewashed figure, encouraging us to stay alert, grounded in faith. And the good news is that consistently the good triumphs over the bad, over evil. And Revelation 17:14, they will wage war against the Lamb. The Lamb will triumph because he is the Lord and King of Kings. I only suppose that with the increase, the proliferation in the truths that are coming out concerning our history, but he's going to be someone who would be melanated, would be black. But there are different attributes given in Revelation. And he says, simply put, he opposes God. And then who is God? Certainly black. And it's not difficult to imagine in our time, there's so many different warring factions, and there's religions. You have Islam, you have Christianity, you have Hinduism, Judaism. But do you realize that all of these faiths and religions, they subscribe to different deities, different beings. No one really focuses on a true, call it melanated deity. We look at Christianity, we see the image of a white Christ. We see Islam, we see the mysterious figure of Muhammad. Was it 600 AD or 1600 AD? There's still no proper records to support that. And a lot of faith has been put in an alternative religion and faith, which strays from the Jewish God, Jehovah. And even those who practice today are not connected to the land, not connected to the religion. And they subscribe to the Talmud and other books, failing to recognize the scriptures in full, the New Testament. But this will be a plague on all homes, all houses, stamping out religion in all forms. That's one of the attributes of the Antichrist. Says maybe the Antichrist will arise from Islam, will arise from the Middle East. We know that there will be a opposition to God. He's referred to, and it's referred to as the beast in Revelation 13. And the beast, the reign is marked by blasphemy against God, persecution of the saints, and the quest for global domination. Now, America itself is bent on dominion, but the cracks are there. That whole empire is falling away. The Antichrist too will be a boastful king, desiring to be like the Most High. Satan also desired that, before his fall from heaven. He will perform miracles and wondrous, glorious acts, causing fire to appear. We know that they have all sorts of technology that will just inspire and dazzle the world. But we know that they will also persecute Christians. But this will be the remnant. It's a calling away of those from all religions, not just Adventists or Baptists or Pentecostals or Church of England, but it's going to be a remnant of those who identify with the proper deity, Black, Jewish, Hebrew God, that will identify with the Sabbath and coming back to the real faith. And we know that it will happen in rapid succession. Now, as a lawyer and barrister, certainly I don't have a crystal ball, and there's no simple way to put it. As a barrister and lawyer, no one truly has a crystal ball, and the time will be short. The beast, Antichrist, will be given dominion over the 10 kings of the world. And there is another passage that I have found in Revelation 17, and I wanted to read that to you. But there is a passage in Revelation 17 that says that the beast will be given dominion over the kings, 10 kings, and will reign for 1 hour. 1 hour is basically 1 year. And the day in prophecy is equal to a year. Now, if you divide that into 24, that would be approximately 2 weeks, 12 months in a year, 2 weeks, a very short period. So there will be a complete dominion over all the ruling nations for 2 weeks. 1 hour, I say 1 day is a year, and 24 cycles, that would be a fortnight. So again, 1 day in prophecy is equal to 1 literal year. So if you break that into 24 parts or fortnight, then 2 weeks is when it says that the beast will reign over all the kingdoms. This is Revelation 17. And he will make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb will triumph, because he is King of Kings, Lord of Lords. And that, call it prostitute, was seated. The waters representing all people. Prostitute would be the vile religions. There are multitudes and nations. And those 10-horned beasts, again, graphic imagery of Revelation, they will leave her desolate and naked, will eat her flesh. For God has put into their hearts to carry out his purpose by uniting and to give their kingdom to the beast that ruled over all the kings of the earth. And there's a build-up resentment, animosity towards this false system. Even today, we see that people are becoming anti-Israel. But does it mean anti-Semitic when they're not Semitic people, but even anti-US? There is that built-up resentment, years and years, decades of extreme living. I said living high on the hog, the decadence, the opulent lifestyles, and 58 million millionaires, only 2% black. But the 58 million millionaires doesn't even represent 1% of our total planet. Most of the people, 99% of the planet, live currently as just thousandaires, hundredaires, if you call it, below the poverty line, at the poverty line. With biting inflation, that creates resentment towards the ruling classes and the systems. So it inevitably collapses. And this is judgment for the kingdoms of the world.
This is GTR, Genesis Timeline and Roots.
Now, we know that Daniel Revelation, we speak about an image. Daniel saw an image in a dream. And first he couldn't understand it. And Nebuchadnezzar couldn't understand it. and it was an image of a man with 5 parts. So head of gold representing Babylon, 600 to 530 BC, Persia, which is modern day Iran and Iraq, and that's around 538 to 331 BC. Now, also into that sort of damning and foretelling set of events would be also Greece. And we're talking about a time frame of about 330 to about 63 BC. Now, Rome as an empire was somewhere around 27 BC to 1400 AD, but Rome also fell in about 457. Now, the time frame between 400 and 500 became 1500. So there's a quantum leap in the timeline. But there are 4 major kingdoms: Babylon, Iraq, Persia, Iran, Greece, Rome, Italy, European Union. And then the base of the image, iron and clay. And anatomically, iron cannot fuse with clay. And so it is that these nations would agree, but they will not be one. Right now, the Treaty of the Maastricht, the Treaty of Rome, the treaties of Amsterdam, even Lisbon in 2009 that created a whole European bloc. There it is. And the final end of this dream and this foretelling, it's stone cut from the mountains, smashes at the base, smashes at the feet, which represents the doing away of all kingdoms and represents the coming of Christ. And that is what Daniel saw. And it's the clearest prophetic timeline. We are in the toes, we're in the toenails of this prophecy. This is the clearest picture of all the vivid images of scrolls and curses and Egyptian plagues and what's going to come, the famines, the war, the 1/3 of mankind being wiped out, the Antichrist, and the coming of the end. Again, the time of Jacob's trouble, 3 years of tribulations. So get your water, get your seeds, get your everything prepared, because that time is coming that God will ransom his people. But what God? A melanated black God. What faith, what people, the remnant, marked by the true Sabbath, Shabbat, marked by a desire to serve the true God, not fake religions, not ones of chasing false deity and God. But this image is very clear. It's my best account of the timeline. Remember, this is GTR, Genesis Timeline Roots. And you could see that the prophetic timeline, the image was destroyed. And when Nebuchadnezzar king saw this, he decided to turn around and create a fully golden image and force people to bow down. We know the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, Daniel's friends, and they were tossed into the fire. And Christ appeared as the 4th figure. He saved them, and they were called out, and Nebuchadnezzar repented. But he interpreted his dream. Oh, he didn't want Babylon to fall, and it did fall. They dried up the moat. They went in through the tunnels, and they defeated Babylon. And quick succession. So when you look at the ancient Iraq, when you look at Iran, when you look at Greece and Rome, that is pagan Rome, papal Rome, and today Italy, the Vatican, and the European Union, which it is part of, we know that we have the tribes that defeated Rome, the Vandals, the Visigoths, the Lombards. All of those are mentioned in the 10 toes and 10 toes of the image, and the stone cut from the mountain hit the image and have done away with all of those kingdoms. And that is coming. We are living in that moment in time. The word is, let's make our calling and election sure, because this prophecy is the clearest prophecy of Daniel and Revelation. This is not to be feared. This is what's coming. And in each of these empires fell, we know historically. Babylon fell, which is Iraq, then Persia, and Iran, Greece as a superpower, and Rome. Rome is still continuing through the papacy, through the work of the Vatican, but the military powers are no more. And then the 10 tribes, the Franks, which the Benelux, they're still surviving today. And then the image is cut out, and then the whole thing collapses, all earthly empires. And that is it. Whether blacks will be acknowledged in the end or chased off the reservation because the Anunnaki is coming and this false flag is created, I just don't know. But let's be prepared in our hearts and minds as to what is truly going to come.
This is GTR, Genesis Timeline and Roots.
So let us study the Word. Let us encourage each other to read and prove ourselves right, as the Scripture says, as the Bible says. So with that, I'm just going to close out on episode 31. I am going to have more interviews in the coming weeks when the results for my 4 test takers will be revealed. That's Mapunga Michelle from Burkina, VP Cook, and even the R. McDonald living in Hawaii, who's linked to St. Elizabeth. I will have those results. I will compare that with the data sets that I have in place for the other testers. And then I'll have a proper show and even interview and then show the photographs, which I'm collecting, the family photographs, and I will have more to share and expand my tree with this new information. And I will also try to interview more persons like David Rivers and more Caymanian-linked, Jamaican-linked, Caribbean-linked persons, whether they be R or an E or a J or I will put them on the show, and then we will do a deep dive into their family tree. Greetings again from Cambridge University. Thank you for watching. Have a good, restful evening, good morning, wherever you are, good day, good night. And this concludes episode 31, which was a bit of a eclectic mix of topics and themes, but one focusing on the alien delusion, the coming alien delusion. Don't be caught out. Be prepared, read your Bibles, and know that it's definitely an end game. And we must be prepared, both physically and mentally, for when that day comes. Thank you again.